Here.
Hanson,
Absent, excused.
Hermaning,
Here.
Kaiser,
Here.
Maple,
Here.
Novinsky,
Here.
Stankowski,
Here.
Calandra Zebro,
Here.
Kelly Zebro.
Here.
Thank you. Pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll seek an approval of the agenda, please.
Also moved.
Second.
Motion by Gorman, second by Novinsky. Any questions or updates, corrections, or deletions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. I'll seek approval of the agenda, of the minutes from the regular board meeting from July 16th.
I'll make a motion. I'll second.
Second by, motion by Kaiser, second by Calandra Zebro. Any corrections? Oh, sorry. Diane Gorman.
voice.
Yeah, you threw it over to me.
Yeah.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Approval of the minutes from the special board meeting from August 1st.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Kelly Zebro, second by Novinsky. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And approval of the minutes from the August 8th special board meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Calandra Zebro,
I'll second.
second by Diane Gorman.
I want to say Calandra again.
No. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain,
I wasn't there.
Yeah, me either. So. Okay, motion carries. Special presentation, item 6A, discussion and possible decision, donation from Ulster Municipal.
Yeah, we received a donation from them for some weight room equipment and a new scores table. Trevor kind of led that process, so seeking approval of the donation. We actually have check in hand, and then we will send out a thank you letter and tax exempt stuff to them tomorrow.
Wonderful.
I'll make that motion to approve. I'll second.
Motion by Diane Gorman, second by Calandra Zebro. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
It's always nice when you have to check in hand.
Aye.
All right, athletic department year in review and year in preview. Trevor.
All right, well, thanks for having me. First of all, I want to start off thanking the custodial staff. They done an outstanding job last year and also this year so far. Just lining the fields, all the maintenance they have to do. We had a lot of play. I had 15 playoff games last year, setting up for volleyball, setting up for basketball. They just do an outstanding job, and I don't think they get enough credit. So I just want to make sure that everybody knows how much I appreciate them. We had a really, really memorable year last year. It's just one of those ones for the record books, and we did have a lot of different records last year. We had a couple special nights. We always make sure that we do our officials appreciation nights. We usually do it once every season, so the fall season, winter season, and spring season. Teams do participate. Sometimes they give them goodie bags. Sometimes I bring them out some goodie bags. Just give them some snacks and stuff like that. Just make sure that they know that they're appreciated as
Is
well.
that before the game?
Yes.
Okay.
Participation numbers last year, we had 364 students participate in sports last year. 199 were boys, 165 were girls. Of the boys, 42 of them were in one sport, 46% of them were in two sports, and 22% of them, which was 44 boys total, were in three sports. That is impressive, actually, compared to other districts that I've been in, that we have that many three-sport athletes. Girls, 55% were in one sport, 22% were in two sports, 23% were in three sports, which is also a very, very good number. So basically, 59% of our students at Mosinee High School participate in athletics.
Trevor, do you know what the average a school district has? Do you know what a range is at all?
It would depend vastly on the kind of school it is, where it's located and stuff like that. I'd like to see that number go up a little bit. So we'll see with our enrollment and everything else too. So we had 2 college signing days this past year, which went very, very well. We have a lot of kids that are, moving on past high school and playing athletics, and it's always a pleasure just to see what they do in the future and wherever they go. We ended up with 8 conference championships last year in the GNC and elsewhere. It was boys soccer, football, volleyball, girls hockey, boys basketball, softball, and baseball. We also had 7 regional championships last year. Boys soccer, golf, boys hockey, girls hockey, volleyball, softball, and baseball. We also had 3 sectional championships, softball, baseball, and girls hockey. And at state, the girls finished up second. That was just a really, really good time there at Goodman Field over in Madison. Just the experience. I was with the team for the entire 4 days. Just riding on the bus with them, going out to dinner with them, just all the fun. We just had a blast. One of the best times was during the rain delay. We were down in the locker room, the Badger locker room, and we were just playing some music, and the girls were dancing and being silly. It was a lot of fun. Baseball was played at Timber Rattler Stadium over in Appleton. Again, just another 4 days of hanging out with the guys. I think the best thing was after the game. You would think that they would be pretty down after losing, but we went to Buffalo Wild Wings, and they talked me into doing one of the blazing wings. So it was me, one of the coaches, and 3 of the kids ate blazing wings, and it's the first time I ever had one. So it was pretty fun. And then we had the girls hockey team, which is a co-op, and they were the state champions. And again, another fun time in Madison. Just outstanding games, exciting. The facility is fantastic. And it was just a lot of fun to be part of that. We had 2 coaches of the year last year in the GNC, Justin Jacobs for volleyball, and we had Cody Britsky for softball. These are more individuals. George Alice, he was a conference and a regional championship in wrestling. He had an outstanding season. These are individuals at state. Britt Fitzgerald was there for cross country and track. Jaden Reed was gymnastics. She qualified for the vault. Track, that was a 4x400 relay. We had Madison, Kate, Britt, and Talon. And then Omar, he actually took second in state in the high jump. So another outstanding year for our individual athletes. Our scholar athletes last year was Keegan Jerschley and Caitlin Selly. 2 really, really good kids. They both had 4.0 GPAs at the time when we checked. 3 sport athletes, and they're just outstanding individuals and people, and they did a lot of community work as well. Special Olympics, we had kids go to bowling, which was Jack Mahia, I think I pronounced her name. They went there for bowling, and then for track and field, we had Alex and Lincoln. And both Mr. and Mrs. Janikowski do an outstanding job with Special Olympics. They're very passionate people. They love the kids. They love what they do, and it's just a lot of fun to see them out with the kids and doing what they do. Donations last year for the athletic department. We ended up getting $10,000 from Alstrom, $10,000 from Mullins Cheese, and we purchased a UTV with that we're going to use for athletic events. Custodians and maintenance also uses it for snow removal and other things. We had an anonymous donation for $50,000 for the weight room. We had another donation just today accepted, $14,300 from Alstrom for a score table and to help with the weight room. So that was $84,300 in donations this past year. The weight room equipment, I'll talk about that in a little bit here. So, year in preview. So this year we're going to be looking forward to the addition of boys and girls lacrosse. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out and how that should be a lot of fun. For middle school football, last year they were in a conference. We were playing John Muir and Wisconsin Rapids schools and a couple of schools that were really big. We ended up going to an AD meeting and talked to the teams that we normally play, like Rylander and Anago and stuff like that. So we moved our division to be a little more competitive this year. So that should be more teams that are our size and should be a lot more fun. Middle school soccer is growing. This will be the first year we have separate boys and girls teams. So we do not have girls in the fall anymore. They will have their own season in the spring. We had a full team last year for the girls in the spring. Hopefully we get some more girls out this year and have 2 full teams. We are getting a new ice machine that's going to be put in the main gym. So it's not going to have to walk all the way down to a locker room and get it now. So we'll have them in 2 places. I know our athletic trainer is very, very excited about it. And we also ended up getting her a taping table. I think the table she has in there is from 1970. So we are losing our athletic trainer, if you didn't know that. She did accept another position. She'll be here till the end of September. But she will be replaced by somebody else from Spirus. We're going to implement an athletic training program with the money from the weight room. I ordered new bars, benches, not actual physical benches, just the movable benches, med balls, bands, dumbbells, and plates. So basically we're replacing a lot of the stuff that's broken and bent down there. What it's going to do is it's going to create the opportunity for 14 stations. So you'll be able to have 14 areas where they can do the same thing at the same time. We have enough, we got plyo boxes as well. So I'm sitting down with the coaches, our first meeting's next week, and we're going to put together a program that's encompasses the entire program. We want to break it up into 4 different sections. We'll have a fall session, a winter session, a spring session, and a summer session. So with that, we'll also be able to do record boards, have a little goal setting, and have a consistent training program for all our kids. And then also, I want to continue to improve our facilities in the future.
We also had something else happen this year that's never happened. We, for the first time, had a football player win we had a team that won a Division I AA national championship, South Dakota State, Davin Stoffel. He actually played in the game.
Yes.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
First time in Mosinee's history.
Oh, and the boys' conference championship was the first time in school history.
Correct.
For soccer, yeah.
Wow.
Any questions at all? Anyone? They come down with that. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 7 is the public forum. It's my understanding nobody has signed up to speak at the meeting. Thank you.
That's incorrect. I signed up last night.
I didn't get anything. So,
About 10 o'clock last night, I put it in.
okay. I didn't have anything on there, so. I did not come
Problem if he speaks.
Don't need a- Anybody have a concern?
No, I'm fine with that.
Dan, please. Share your name, your address, and the topic.
I know the whole routine, yes.
Making sure, we're being recorded, so
Yes.
there's
All
public
right.
watching.
My name is Dan Lesniak, and I live at 816 Spring Road. And I would like to talk about item 11U on the agenda. And that is the reduction of number of school board members.
Okay.
When I looked at the agenda as it came out last week, that item kind of caught me by surprise. And I'm going to speak tonight both as a lifelong Mosinee area resident, but also, as many of you are aware, I've as a former elected municipal leader who served 8 two-year terms on one of the boards within the community. It caught my interest because at first it's like, okay, 9 members every 3 years, 3-year terms, 3 people per year. That seems pretty simple. But I'm going to be curious to hear some of the discussion about the reason and rationale why going from 9 to 7 or whatever the number is makes sense. So being somebody who's very interested in local government, that piece of the discussion, personally, I'm going to be very interested in hearing the details on. The other piece I would like for whoever's putting forward the petition to do this at the annual meeting or to bring this forward at the annual meeting to think about. One of the things that has been an element of people getting elected to the school board every year for many years, probably I'm going to estimate 20 to 30 years ago, it was changed from having all of the different areas down to 5 seats that are designated for the areas and 4 seats that are at-large seats, is it was more segmented in the past. And with how it is now, anybody who wishes to run for the school board has the option of doing it every year because there's always one at-large seat up every year. with a transition, if it were to go to 7, and however that gets transitioned in terms of process, one of the things that I think that our community might be ready for, or is ready for, is getting rid of the whole area concept in total and electing all 7, as time goes on, all 7 or all 9 members of the board, however it ends up being, electing them at large all the time. I know in speaking with people who are asking about elections and all of that, and they know I understand the whole political and electoral process, they get always confused about, well, can I vote in this one or can't I vote in this one, and how that always works. So I think if we're going to make one change in terms of going from 9 to 7, it would make sense, regardless if we go from 9 to 7 or stay at 9, to look at eliminating areas and having all 3 seats or all of whatever number of seats are up each year end up being at large. Because having lived in this community this long, I can see where in the past it made sense to have all of those areas segmented. But I think if where we're at in today and how today's community runs, we don't have some of the friction between the city and the surrounding municipalities that used to exist in this community years back. Where now I think we're a much more cohesive community, whether you live in the town of Emmett or the town of Knowlton or the village of Kernwetter, city of Mosinee, or any of the other municipalities. So those are my comments, and I'll be curious to hear the discussion tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Item 8 are the consent agendas. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion to approve the consent agendas. Well, we didn't have the ones.
Right, the other one will be on item 11A.
I'll second.
Motion by Kelly Zebro, second by Diane Gorman, to approve the consent agendas. Any items by the 2 committees to be pulled out? I know nothing from finance. Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item number 9, discussion and possible decision, approval of the monthly voucher list.
I'll make the motion to approve the monthly voucher list.
Motion by Kelly Zebro,
I'll second it.
second by Donna Kaiser. Any questions, discussion? Roll call, please.
Foreman,
Yes.
Hanson, Hermaning,
Yes.
Kaiser,
Yes.
Maple,
Yes.
Nowinski,
Yes.
Stankowski,
Yes.
Calandra Zebro,
Yes.
Kelly Zebro.
Yes.
Thank you. Item number 10, discussion and possible decision, acceptance of the monthly treasurer's report. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion to accept the monthly treasurer's.
Motion by Kelly Zebro,
I'll second.
second by Calandra Zebro. Any questions? All in favor, say aye. I'm sorry, roll call, please.
Foreman,
Yes.
Hermaning,
Yes.
Kaiser,
Yes.
Maple,
Yes.
Nowinski,
Yes.
Stankowski,
Yes.
Calandra Zebro,
Yes.
Kelly Zebro.
Yes.
Thank you. Item number 11, new business, Personnel Committee hiring report.
We had, just because we handled some of them on August 8th, we did not have the Personnel Committee this month, because there was just a couple of hires between August 8th and tonight, so that is what is on the Personnel hiring report.
So it looks like it's just the one sped and then the
Right,
rest of
yeah.
us.
Yep.
Okay, I'll make that motion to approve.
And I'll second it.
Motion to approve by Diane Gorman, second by Donna Kaiser, the hiring report as presented with the 2 individuals. Any questions?
That is head coaches, right?
I'm sorry, Paul, what was your question?
The wrestling coach, Dylan Ichkuski, the current coach, will be head coach, and Morgan will be, they'll be co-head coaches. Correct?
Okay.
It'll be a shared position.
Shared position.
All right, any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 11B, discussion and possible decision, ratification of an agreement with the MEA, Mosinee Education Association, on the 2024-2025 contract.
Yeah, we The negotiations committee met with the MEA on August 13th, and we came to an agreement on a contract that we needed ratified. The MEA, I was notified about last night. They ratified their contract via email or via online voting. I'm not sure exactly how they did it, but I received notification from the MEA that they have ratified the contract on their end. Now it's our opportunity to ratify it on our end. As you can see, there's 3 components to it. The first component would be the STEP agreement. That was part of the compensation model last year for those returning staff members.
Excuse me, Greg. Does everybody have a copy of what he's referencing?
Well, you have it on here, on your report.
Oh, okay.
Coupled that with the fact that the basics of the agreement are the step increase as per the compensation model, the $1,000 per teacher increase, and then the elimination of the 60 hours of professional development. Negotiations committee is recommending approval.
Question?
Yes, please.
How do you think the process went? I wasn't involved.
So there were 4 of us on the
Yeah, I know
negotiations
that.
committee from our, no, I understand, from our side, and I think we had 4, maybe 5 meetings. We had an introductory meeting where we exchanged initial proposals. We had a number of, I think, very fruitful conversations about not only the process, but the rationale behind our proposals and the proposals from the union representatives as well. And I would like to formally extend appreciation to Lori and your team for what I would describe as a very good faith negotiations effort and process. And extend appreciation to your whole team for that on behalf of the board. The committee that Greg referenced is unanimously recommending approval of the contract. And I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. There was some good history that was shared as far as past negotiations recently, but also really coming together on some good numbers and the sharing of the data. So, Diane?
I agree with everything you said, so especially last meeting really went very well. So I will make the motion to approve.
Okay.
And I'll second.
Jessica, anything you want to add?
No, you for the most part, covered everything.
Yes.
Do we plan on to have consistent meetings with the MEA, even if it's not through negotiations?
Yeah, so I
Just
probably,
continue the dialogue?
I think I left out one thing, and that is that there was some, forgive me for the right,
Meet and
meet
confer.
and confer meetings
Yes.
that occurred during the process between the superintendent and one or more of the members of the union negotiating committee. I would hope that, that there would be that kind of ongoing open dialogue about even some non-financial matters, questions and concerns as we go through this process. Because that, eventually that did come up at the very end, once we had an agreement, or once we had a tentative agreement, excuse me. Because for the most part, those items were not negotiable, right? You can't really negotiate non-finance matters. And so those were items that came up during the discussions that Greg had had. And then we learned a little bit about that after the end of the process. So, anything else? Anybody else? We have a motion by Diane Gorman, a second by Jessica Maple to approve the contract for 2024-2025 with the Mosinee Education Association. Any last questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. It occurred to me, should we have done that as a roll call? Does it matter? Okay. Very good. Item 11C, discussion and possible decision, initial resolution authorizing general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $19,750,000.
Yeah, this is the resolutions that we talked about at our last meeting. This is kind of the dollar amount that the board came to an agreement with, which allowed us to then have the resolution prepared by bond counsel. I would recommend a roll call vote on this just because, for the record. But, you know, the next 2 resolutions are just a formal process that we have to go through to get the ballot question then Shane and I will have some work to do in regards to getting it to the county clerk. We have to get it with Rod on the DPI website, and then we have to go through a process where we have to put notices in the paper at various times throughout the next couple of months. That's all laid out in a calendar. But this is the first step in the process, the official process.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Novinsky, second by Kelly Zebro, to authorize the approve of the initial resolution authorizing the GEO bonds in an amount not to exceed $19.75 million. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Foreman,
Yes.
Hanson, Hermaning,
Yes?
Kaiser,
Yes.
Maple,
Yes.
Novinsky,
Yes.
Stankowski. Calandra 0,
Yes.
Kelly 0.
Yes.
I think it's particularly important that it be noted that it was a unanimous vote.
Yep.
I mean, when we're gonna go to the public, I think it's particularly helpful that that is the situation. Okay? Thank you. Item 11D, discussion and possible decision, resolution providing for a referendum on the question of the amount of an initial resolution authorizing the general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $19.75 million. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Novinsky,
I'll second.
second by Calandra Zebro. Any questions about this one? Roll call, please.
Foreman,
Yes.
Hanson, Hermaning,
Yes?
Kaiser,
Yes.
Maple,
Yes.
Novinsky,
Yes.
Stankowski. Calandra 0,
Yes.
Kelly 0.
Yes.
Thank you. Same thing as far as the unanimity. Item 11E, discussion and possible decision, endorsement of the booster clubs.
Yeah, this is the annual motion that the board has to go through to approve booster clubs. And one of the questions that I have, being new to the process here, is what exactly does the endorsement mean in terms of what do they get by being endorsed? Is it simply fee waivers? In which case then this motion and the next motion can be consolidated. If it's more ability to use tax exempt ID, falling under our liability, etc., then we need to have policy and procedure in place for what that means in terms of annual auditing of financials and things like that. Just basically because they're falling under our tax ID number, then we would be liable for some of this, and we need to have some policies and procedures in place to protect ourselves.
I don't think it's ever done the financial part of it. It was always the ability to be able to use the facilities rent-free.
I think there's been an assumption on the public couple recently that the whole issue of liability insurance and tax ID numbers and each having their own, I'm not an expert at this, but I know this was part of the discussion you and I had had.
Yes, that was my big
Yes.
question, is because I think there's a couple groups that have come up that are under the assumption that it includes our tax ID number and some of those other
It used to in the
things.
past. I mean, booster clubs could use a tax ID so that they weren't charged tax on purchasing.
The issue becomes, because I believe none, correct me if I'm wrong, none of those funds flow through the school district's budget, financial records, and yet our tax ID number is what is used then, and I think that that's become the issue, is that right?
I mean, that would be my recommendation, is that, yes, I think, I mean, if it's the wishes of the board to allow the tax ID component, then that's fine, but then we need to put some policies and procedures in place to protect ourselves from,
They can buy anything they want.
well, but beyond that though too, Paul, I mean, it could be, you know, you just, when somebody's using your tax ID number, if you end up getting audited by the IRS or something, you're gonna have to have some proof that those people that were using it have some audited documents or something to show where they filing their tax, you know, because there's still a certain amount of that has to go
Well, and the
on.
other aspect is liability insurance.
Right.
I mean, that's a problem. I mean, I understand why we're allowing people to do it. At the same time, if we don't have a policy and procedure, somebody could do something pretty stupid, we could be very liable for it.
Correct.
Yeah, so, I'm not an expert at this, but we should be able to, there should be a way in which one or more organization or all the organizations could be covered by an umbrella policy that the district already has or might add on riders for without having to have the nonprofit status of our organization be used by the organization. Part of this came up a couple of years ago also with the MAAC, right? I mean, we had discussions about some of this in the past couple of years, 2 or 3 years ago.
We did.
So I mean, I'm not saying to put the brakes on it tonight. If this is the way it's always been done, I would not recommend you make changes tonight, because I don't think it's necessarily fair to these groups that have believed this is the assumption. But if you want to say, you know, to me, you can either say we're going to approve it, but I challenge the superintendent to create some policy to bring back to us, or procedures, or just kind of something in writing. Or you can say we'll approve it for this year, but next year, you know, you can just get fee status and you have to become your own 501c3, or whatever it is, or have to fall under somebody else's 501c3 status. I think, to me, those are your two options.
I would recommend policies and procedures. We've done this for a while. And I think to do a cold turkey would cause some of these organizations some
Right.
issues.
Right.
And I think in the past, what it was is because you never want to step on people's toes for raising money for where it's needed. So there was an understanding that the AD would in general be in touch with the booster clubs to kind of monitor, if you wanna say, how they were spending the money, so that the group was of the understanding.
I was gonna say in my past schools, they would have to supply a financial statement at the end of the year.
Yes.
so.
Yes.
Yep.
And a lot of the sporting groups have their own activities account, which is run through the school and it's all
Right.
audited and all
Right.
checked.
Yep,
And
yep.
they can't
Fund
spend
21
money, they can't spend money on certain things.
Yep, it's Fund
There's
21 account.
protection, yep.
But this is more your youth clubs and those outside entities. So like I said, my recommendation to you would be one of two things. Either approve it and say this is the last year, or, you know, which probably is the better option, approve it, but let's put some policies and procedures in place to
I'll
protect
make a
ourselves.
motion to approve and put policies and procedures that direct you to do that.
And I'll second.
We have a motion by Novinsky, a second by Gorman, to approve the recommendation of administration and direct the superintendent to work to establish policy
To bring back.
to bring back to the board. Any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 11F, discussion and possible decision, clubs and groups seeking the fee waiver status.
Yeah, we have a handful that are seeking the fee waiver status. These are just clubs and groups that are part of, kind of affiliated with the youth in our community that just want to have their fee status waived. You know, nothing real earth-shattering on it. It was just a process that they had to go through. Remember, we kind of changed that process when we changed the fee structure. So we're just bringing them back to you.
Do we have something in place where if somebody forgot to do this,
I
and
have
all of a
the-
sudden wants to do it?
I have the
Yeah, they
approval.
do. Okay, I'll make the motion to approve it.
I'll second it.
Motion by Novinsky, second by Kaiser, to approve the fee waiver status for those groups and clubs that are seeking the waiver. Any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 11G is the discussion of possible decision, the annual physical restraint and seclusion report.
Okay, and now Brian Grill, our new Director of Student Services, will kind of present this. This is an area that he's kind of been tackling here the last couple of months. So I want to turn it over to him to talk a little bit about the process, procedures, some changes we're looking to make, and the reasons why, and then he'll get eventually to the actual report that needs to be approved.
Yep. So, thank you for giving me the time to talk you through this. So, every year I have to come to you as the board and present our annual numbers from the previous school year to say how often are we using the practice of seclusion and restraint. So really quick, because I'm new to you, you're new to me, and I just wanted to give you some background on the history of the law. So Act 125 was the original law for seclusion and restraint that outlined what is seclusion and restraint, what is the documentation we have to maintain, who is allowed to perform seclusion and restraint. So that was the original law. Now, about 4 years ago, they updated the law because they realized under the old practice, there wasn't the communication, there wasn't the follow-up to say, how are we preventing this from happening again? So they really wanted to put some parameters in place to help schools have follow-up discussion and say, this isn't a practice we want to be using. So what can we do differently to provide teachers and staff training to help de-escalate students so we're not getting to this situation? So these were some of the updates that came when it was approved in 2022. One of the big ones, just definition-wise, they defined what a public school employee was, and now that included police officers. So if it happens on school grounds where a police officer does seclusion and restraint, they do have to report it. We do have to count those as part of our seclusion and restraint. One situation that we don't have here that's also part of the law is private schools. If it happens at a private school, it does count towards our numbers. We no longer have a private school setting in the Mosinee School District, so that doesn't apply to us, but I just wanted to let you know that's also included. Some of the documentation things that changed as part of the process. Prior, we had to have a report. That's always been part of the process. But that used to be after 3 days, it's just available at parent request for that seclusion restraint report. But now it's required that we do send it home. Parents do get a copy of it. It's not at request anymore. And prior, it was best practice to have a follow-up meeting to talk about what was the situation, what were the antecedents, what could we have done differently to help a kid so we didn't get to this point of seclusion restraint. That was just best practice. Now they're saying, hey, within 24 hours, you have to have this meeting to talk about it, so it's fresh on everyone's mind, and we're thinking about how to prevent this from happening. And the other one too, students with disabilities, if they have once they have 2 incidents in 1 year, we have to have an IEP within 10 days. Because it's saying, hey, if you have 2 incidents in a year, that's a lot. It may not sound like a lot, but it really is. And we should be looking at the IEP and saying, is there a behavior intervention plan needed? Is there additional accommodations or resources needed to help the student? So that became a requirement under the new guidelines as well. Questions about the law and those new guidelines? Okay, the last piece too, the training piece changed, because before it was just you had to train individuals on how to do the physical holds if they're doing physical restraint. Now the requirement is your training, yes, you have to have the physical piece, but you have to have de-escalation strategies that you're teaching to say, how are our staff knowing, okay, if a kid's upset, what can I try differently so we're not ramping up the situation? How are we helping bring the student down and de-escalate? So the training used to be just solely reactive. I truly enjoy this part because it helps you be proactive as well to say, how are you noticing the signs that a student is getting upset, and how are you helping bring the situation down rather than going in the opposite direction? Go ahead, yes.
Brian, are you going to be offering training for the special ed assistants this year? Additional training or training that they can take outside, you know, like a conference or something?
Yes, and I'll get to that when I get to the next steps.
Okay.
But absolutely, yes.
Okay.
I am going to talk about that, and we do talk about training. Okay. Absolutely. So here's the data that I have to present to you legally this evening. So the number of incidents of both seclusion and restraint. I do have to segregate the data to say how many students with and without disabilities was seclusion and restraint used. And then this is just, I have to report to you by October 1, and then I submit it to DPI by the end of October. So here's our trend that I noticed in collecting data over the last 5 years. So you see in 1920, you know, we had a decent amount. 2021, that was our COVID year. Then 21, 22, you did have some decline in the elementary school. Pride Center did increase a little bit. Then in 22, 23, 23, 24, there was a significant jump. But as I've been doing, starting in the district, asking questions, understanding situations, some of that too, and I'll talk about this in my next steps, there was some misinterpretation as to what the definition of seclusion and restraint was. So I plan this year to really work with our person who does the crisis, nonviolent crisis training, to add a component in that if you are receiving this training, we are gonna really go over the definitions of what counts as seclusion and restraint, because I went through every single one of those incidents, and some of them did not meet that criteria. Now, could we have done things differently? Absolutely, and that's part of that training. But I'm just saying they did not rise to the level of what counted. So I think there is some miscommunication that I'm seeing in our understanding. So that's where principals are attending the training, special ed teachers are attending that training. So for us to get a common definition and understanding of what meets that criteria. But going back for a second, so 13 students with disabilities were secluded and restrained within those numbers, and there are 3 students without disabilities. So what are we gonna do to help correct this? Because part of with what our numbers were too, I got a letter as part of my welcome to Mosinee. We got a letter, we were identified by BPI for overuse of seclusion and restraint. So we do have to come up with a corrective action plan, and that's part of the work. I've been working very closely with Jolynn and the admin and their pupil service team to do the action planning and to do the root cause analysis to say, why is this happening? They have been a great team, giving me great insight to say where it is, and that's how we found out. We think some of it is A, we have some miscommunication. B, the other thing that we really talked about is how are we providing training to all staff, including educational assistants, including teachers, on that verbal de-escalation process. Because that's not just meant for special ed, that's good training for all educational professionals to have that toolbox, because you think we have a lot of young teachers that may not have those tools in their toolbox to say, how do I address this situation? How do I help de-escalate? So that just really helps them build those tools that they have for classroom management. Then too, we notice in looking at the guidelines, there were some things that we weren't necessarily in compliance with those meetings after the situation. So we're really evaluating our forms, beefing up that process to say we are in legal compliance, and we're having those meetings to evaluate. So some of our students that are having repeat incidents, we're addressing it and taking care of it sooner after an earlier incident rather than after multiple. Then two, we're working on building universal practices. I know the elementary has worked on the green room space, they've worked on the pause place, and I'm helping them evaluate those resources and saying how do we put additional procedures in place on how to use those. So those are the next steps we're gonna do. I know Jolynn is on board with me. We're hoping to come back next year with this, and this looks a little bit different for you guys. But we are doing a lot of work to dive in and take it as, yep, this is a good way for me to come in as a new person, evaluate our practices, and get us to a different spot. So, anything you want to add, Jolynn? Sorry.
No, it's been extremely helpful having Mr. Grill work with us, and we've been working with our pupil services team, and as well as we have a committee kind of going with special education, as well as our behavioral specialist as part of that team too. I feel like we've really started to get a lot of those key pieces in place, but having Mr. Grill as a resource and working as a team on that feel like we can take it then to that next step. So I'm really excited about the work and the training involved for our staff. I think we've got a lot of good things going, but this is gonna help us get even further along in that process, so.
Thank you.
Any questions?
I do have a question.
Please.
So in terms of the reporting, and was there one position that was reporting it, or were there multiple positions, and that's where the miscommunication and misunderstanding came in?
I think where some of the miscommunication, because it is one person that enters the numbers to send to DPI, where I think it came in, we have a great trainer in Dee Dee. She does a lot of our CPI training currently. The challenge for her, she was only at the high school, so as questions came up throughout the year and incidents happened and people were like, well, does this count, doesn't this count? She was busy teaching as well. So I'm a certified trainer as well, so I'm gonna be so that way as those questions come up across the 3 schools, I can be there to say, hey, okay, this incident happened, yep, that counts, or no, that doesn't. So, cause we do have close to 77 staff trained across the district. So as people were having questions, I just think having only one trainer, it was a lot.
And I think we erred on the side of over-reporting.
Yeah.
So we really did, and now having Brian as a resource and
Yeah.
working on defining that and staff
Correct.
being more comfortable with that is really going to help with the process.
Yeah. But the nice thing is as we define the process too, I'm gonna get copies of the reports as things happen as one of the steps. So if I see something that, no, this doesn't meet, things like that, and they didn't have time to connect with me, I'll get the report to help do follow-up training and discussion, so. Good question.
Any other questions?
No?
Comment.
Comment, sure.
I've seen their rooms, their colored rooms, and they're awesome. And I'm hoping that, you know, you can take that and move it into the other schools in some way, shape, or form. And the training, that is awesome. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So just so you know, your next steps, the actual report you're approving that you have access to, it's just taking the numbers and putting in the report along with my next steps. So it's just basically my slideshow and report form for you.
I'll
Seek
make
a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Jessica Maple, second by Diane Gorman to approve the annual physical restraint and seclusion reports. Questions, additional? All in favor? Say
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you for your report.
Thank you.
Item 11H, discussion and possible decision. This was a requested school board, a future agenda item from a month or 2 ago. School board scheduled meeting days and dates, prospectively switching our meetings from Tuesday to Monday or Tuesday to Wednesday. And you know that there was a, you had given us basically Tuesday, so in.
Yeah, I would say Tuesday's the admin team. Obviously, there's activities on Tuesday night, but between the building principal and the assistant principal, there can be one person at every board meeting. So we have that covered. And then when we get to the location, which is the second step of this, the administration would recommend that the Kresge Library Wednesday would be possibly the only day there, just because of Monday and Tuesday with activities and stuff going on, parking can be a problem. But that was just a conversation we had because a board member asked us to provide our input on this. And as I have told you in the past, this is your decision, not mine. You tell me what day you want me to attend, and I attend.
I'm the one that
Yep.
added to the
Please,
agenda.
Paul. Go ahead.
Tuesday's a very difficult day because we have a lot of activities, a lot of events going on. That's why I thought Mondays or Wednesdays. I would rather prefer Mondays. Looking at the other local municipalities, none of them conflict with the third Monday of the month. They do, some of them, the city meets second Monday. A lot of townships meet the second Mondays. One did meet on a Tuesday, which caused a little bit of an issue. But for me, it's more about, we would have more administrators, we'd have more people there. And I also wanted the location just because it's a bigger room. there's more availability, and if we're actually going to referendum to move the people from here to that facility, it might be a good time to start having meetings there.
So are you saying during the referendum education process, or?
No,
are you
I'm saying regular school board meetings.
Okay, I
Moved
was
to-
unclear about the reference to the referendum, that's all. Well, I mean, I guess my personal perspective is that, let me stipulate, I don't much care what night it is, or, except I would have an aversion to Wednesday nights, because for many in our community, it's also a church night, right? I do feel a little bit, that all of us ran for the school board and are on the school board knowing that the meetings were Tuesday nights. It's a matter of how the rest of the board feels about this. I'm kind of ambivalent about it. We have had our meetings over the last 3 years, I think 4 or 5 times. We've taken the meetings over to not only the Kresge Auditorium, but also I think we had one in IMC, and we later had one about 2 years ago over at the cafeteria. I would say that, in my opinion, was a different circumstance meeting. And we really did not see, if I remember correctly, we didn't see an increase in the attendance from the public. And I would also say that it seems that, in the last year, we've probably had only 3 or 4 individuals from the public asked to speak at the meetings. It's just, I guess that's what I would add as commentary.
Well, and to tie in to your conversation, we also had meetings at the high school, middle school, and the elementary school. There was
We
really,
did 1 year, we did that.
yes, because we
Yes,
thought
did.
we'd bring it out to the sea, and they were not attended more, actually caused more
It was
confusion
more
by the
confusion.
public.
Yes.
And it was harder for our IT to set up in the different locations. And again, I do agree, I mean, when you get on the board, you run on a Tuesday, because we do get our board packets on Friday.
Right.
So, a lot of us have families and other obligations on the weekends. So that Monday kind of gives us an extra day to review the packet prior to the board meeting, to ask questions.
How many years ago was it that we actually moved? I thought we had 2 or 3 meetings where we did a meeting. I wasn't on the board when the board did this, but there was a meeting on the east side of the river at one of the town halls, and then we did one further out to the west from here. It was like 12 or 13 years ago, wasn't it?
It was over 17, because I've been on here 17 and it's never been.
Okay, you know what, and forgive me, it might have just been when we had the referendum process.
Yes.
When we were building the Kresge Center, or anticipating doing that.
Yes.
So that's probably when it was. It's-
Mike was on the board. Now that you
Okay.
refreshed, I believe they did. They tried
I
to.
mean, I don't even remember what I had for dinner last night, so
Yeah.
forgive me for my memory,
But
right?
I know they had one at the airport. Now that you say that, they had one at the airport, and they had one out, I think, either Bergen or Emmett
Yeah.
or Green Valley or Bergen. And then there was one maybe in Cronewater or somewhere
There was.
that they, yeah.
I mean, I for sure would like to see this process happen during the referendum education process.
Right,
Right.
and usually we do that.
Yep,
And I'm just gonna, my opinion is also, I feel strongly that it has to work for the administrators, even though it is our decision. You want them here, you want them to be, participating in what we're doing and say, and my opinion and my vote will be, I will keep it on Tuesdays. Just like for what Diane, and I am gone on weekends a lot, and Wednesdays is church night, we do,
Yes.
yeah, we're gonna keep that. Monday is just a little hairy, but that's my opinion.
well, I mean, if we're going to change it, we would need a motion. I don't know, Paul, if
But
you're,
it doesn't seem like people have interest in it. What I'm reading, so I.
Regardless, Kevin, I think we need to have a motion to
I think it
approve
should
the
be
meeting
voted on,
dates
right?
for next school year.
oh, because, yes, because
we
it is
haven't
that,
approved
it
it
is
yet.
that time, yes, I'm sorry.
Yep,
Yeah.
So we either need to have approve Monday, Tuesday, or it doesn't sound like there's any appetite for Wednesday.
I think, as we get perhaps, Paul, into the election cycle for school board for next spring, and I think this kind of a topic should stay out there. And I am very amenable if there's a request from, if there's a likelihood that many members of the community plan to or want to attend this particular school board meeting, it would really not be great if we had 75 people who wanted to attend the meeting and then they have to fit into this room. We've had some knowledge in advance that there was a great interest, and so we've chosen at those meetings to move it to the other location for that reason. I was unaware of what you were describing about the different schools.
We
but-
thought we would try it.
Yeah, I didn't know, that's fine.
We always have the annual meeting in the auditorium.
And that's the next agenda item though.
Right.
You're talking location. No, I was just saying I wasn't aware of that, but.
No,
um,
and Kevin, and
Yeah.
it was to get us into the schools, so we got into the elementary school
And have a tour.
library, we went to the middle school library, so
Okay.
yeah, I'm not opposed to, but again, it causes confusion some nights, or,
Yeah.
so.
So we,
And Paul,
No,
I
I
understand what you're saying, I do. Tuesday nights is a conflict, this and that, but
Well, there's sporting events every Tuesday night.
yes, there is, and I agree with Kevin, if and when, bring that up when you're voted in, so
Yeah.
you know that.
Maybe we'll have the district office someday move that direction, and then there won't be any discussion as to where the meetings will be.
so we do need a motion to approve then the meeting dates which are in our packet for Tuesdays, except for, of course, the Monday in January, being the exception to that, and the reorganizational meeting, which would be the fourth Monday of April. And that is statutory, so that can't be on a different night. It's always required to be
I'll
that.
make a motion to approve the Tuesday calendar meetings.
A second.
We have a motion by Jessica, a second by Diane Gorman, to approve the Tuesday, well, the scheduled meeting dates as presented tonight. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Aye.
Item 11I, discussion and possible decision, school board meeting location.
Did you get that, Shane? It was 6-2? Okay.
Again, I had the discussion with making the IMC the location, keeping it permanently there. It's a bigger area, it's more comfortable, there's more space. Even the side rooms or the high school would be better off for some of our personnel committee meetings, stuff like that. Good parking.
I agree with that.
Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion to move the meeting location to the Kresge IMC.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Novinsky, a second by Stankowski, to move the meeting location to the Kresge IMC. Any discussion?
Well, what I read in what Greg had said, there may be conflicts.
Well, you have sporting going on, so remember when you're in there, how many times we sat and there were people running by, they're bouncing basketballs on the floor, you're distracted by watching people go back and forth.
The only thing I put in there, Kelly, was, obviously I haven't been here through a school year. The concern from my experiences as a former AD coach administrator is, what is parking gonna be like up there on a Tuesday? I don't know, there's not a ton of parking on that front side of the building. Anyway, when you talk about the Kresge by the pool auditorium, now obviously there's the backside too. I just basically put that on there as something for you to consider. Just like in the back of your mind, when you make your, that, I'm not saying it's gonna be a conflict, it may not, I could be entirely wrong, I don't know, I just wanna, my job is to give you information and try to have you consider, all things.
Would the space have to be rearranged for our meetings?
Well,
Or not?
No, just kind of like we had.
Oh, it was.
Well, and remember, our athletic director, it might be the first year, but our conference commissioner, we could notify them of our board meetings, and they could try to not have home games that day. It's only one out of the month.
But you might have practices too.
You might, but at 6 o'clock, most people are done.
Yeah,
Cool.
I
Yeah.
just know, I mean, the times that we would arrive for our meetings are kind of before the important basketball, or
Varsity?
the varsity games would be. And now with the parking in the back, that gives people access to the Kresge gym and stuff that they don't have to park in the front anymore, you know, in those areas. You know, and you could probably rope something off even if you had to, or.
Well, I'll tell you, if we had our meetings over there, we better make sure that the board members aren't parking in the front spaces. That's for sure.
Well, guys, remember, Steve went out to some rummage sale and got new chairs. Remember the old chairs they used to sit in? Steve, remember those?
Yep.
I mean, it was not a comfortable thing to sit in
No,
the
I
audience.
agree with you, Paul. I agree with you as far as that goes.
And I'll be honest with you, I mean, a lot of people don't come because they know it's cramped. You're gonna be sitting next to somebody that, the faithful come. They're the same people every time. Most of them are pool people.
So, question, so where would you have your other meetings then, like your
Well,
finance and your?
There's rooms right off the IMC. There's 2 or 3 rooms right off of
it
it.
would end up going to classrooms probably.
Classroom.
Yeah.
We
Oh,
would, we
okay,
would
that
was in
way.
the food.
And we have all the technology. We have, smart boards in every classroom, all this stuff. I mean,
But to be clear, most of the people who come are employees of the district,
correct.
many of whom are expected to be here, right?
Yeah.
There's also that, right?
I'm just wondering if we
And
could get more community involvement, because I think that's what we need.
So I don't remember the number, but we talked during agenda setting that there are quite a number of people who watch online,
I
right?
have no idea. Christine, do you know?
How many are watching? And then it's people who also would watch, not during the live meeting itself.
There's 5 people watching.
5 people, yeah.
But they watch it later, the
They
next
do,
day, there will
right,
be
yeah,
100
right.
viewers.
100 views, yeah.
We'll go back and check.
I'm personally not going to support because of reasons Diane had said. Every time we've had a meeting in there, to include thinking about interviews, there's always hallway distractions, always. And then, additionally, from my recollection, it's not exactly an easy task for IT to have to set up and tear down all the time for the meetings as well. But I'm going to be open-minded to down the road, if a referendum would be passed, that could be a potential option to have a room better set up, so it's better, more easy to facilitate having the board meetings. But as Kevin and Diane had said, the audience has pretty much stayed the same over the years. It doesn't change, and most people, if they want to attend or watch, they do online.
Also, I'm gonna support that, because I think I'm gonna go with when you run again, if we wanna change the night, and if you wanna change the location, so it's all done together. And, I forgot what I was gonna say. There you go. But that's what I'm going with. For now. Oh, that's what I was gonna say, Paul, because also if we do know we're going to have a large community or people, we will change the location of our meetings to come what we need. And I would assume we keep doing that.
So we have a motion and a second to change the location of our board meetings to the IMC in the Kresge Center. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, thank you. Item 11J, discussion and possible decision, annual meeting agenda 2024.
Yeah, the annual meeting agenda is basically what it's always been. I did, as I told you before, I did add a line item, number 12, reduction of board seats from 9 to 7. That'll be a conversation later. I just put it on here in case I do get it. Obviously, if I don't get the petition in time, it'll come off the agenda. So it's just more or less to kind of make people aware that this could be happening, so that nobody feels like they were blindsided by it, which I don't want any part of. So or blindsiding people. So other than that, it's a very common annual meeting agenda to what's been done in the past. And obviously, as we get closer to the annual meeting, we'll start filling in some of these blanks related to reports and presentations, et cetera.
I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Gorman, second by Kaiser, to approve the tentative, I guess, but
Yep.
annual meeting agenda. And what was the date on that again?
September 24th.
Thank you.
That's at 7:00.
Yes.
Yes.
Highlighted there.
Is that in the Kresge Auditorium?
We haven't had it there in the
No,
last
it's in
5 to
IMC.
7 years.
But I'm okay, I mean, if that's where you guys wanna have it.
We did the IMC, I think.
Yeah, I
Last
did.
time it was a
We did.
different location.
But don't.
Yeah, don't we have to approve
You
it
have
a
to
year-
approve it a year
in
ahead of
advance
time,
if you want
Right.
to
if
change
you're
it.
gonna change
Do you
the
have to put the
location.
date or just the, or
No,
you
the
approve the date
location
and the
day,
location?
yeah.
Right.
I don't suppose by some stroke of luck that we have a copy of the minutes from that meeting last year.
I do actually,
Do you?
yes.
Does it state that we have set the location?
Yeah, that was discussion
Right.
last
Yeah,
year.
everything that I pulled off of there was from the meeting minutes from last year, but I will definitely pull it in.
Because otherwise, if it happened to say in the minutes, at a location to be set,
Right, I know what
let's
you're
say
saying.
in the July meeting or in
Right.
advance of the annual meeting or something to that effect. I just don't know, I just know I remember
No, it
that,
doesn't hurt to check.
right?
I don't remember what I was just gonna say, but I remember from
That would
last
be
year.
probably the very last thing, Shayna.
I would-
That's
I
at
think
the
so.
end. Usually that's the last thing you do is set the date
Date
for
Here,
the next meeting.
Setting time and date for the
Yeah.
25 annual meeting, set the,
So, yeah, according to the handouts, yeah, you're right. It's already in the handouts.
but here it says at the district educational services.
It is
It
listed.
does, it just says motioned and by Dave Munoz and second by Peter Hansen to have annual meeting at District Education Service Center at 7 PM on September 26, 2023.
Right, which is here, you're right, Diane. I mean, I wouldn't, I'm not opposed to moving the annual meeting to a different location, if we can, so perhaps we could check with WASB.
I
to
didn't care, I just wanted to notice you put this building down.
But we've had it at the IMC,
Well, we
because
did.
I've been there.
We have, but was it set
We
there?
probably
We
voted
also
for it.
implemented some COVID rules, right?
Yes, we did.
Right.
So those have been emergency set and the whole 6-foot thing and all of that, right? So
But
that's why
that
we,
wasn't the year I was there, though.
fair enough, and I don't remember.
No.
We've had
But,
some, we had a meeting or
we've
two
had
over there.
some-
Well, I guess my recommendation then would be if the desire is to move it to somewhere in the Kresge Auditorium Library, there is a motion made then to say we're gonna move it there if WASB says it's allowable.
If statute permits.
Right, otherwise, we're gonna have to bring this to you not until the September 17th meeting, and that's not enough time to get it publicized, the location of the meeting.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
gonna be happening in 7 days, so I
So
would
is
just
there
want
a
the
desire on
motion.
the part of the board to move the annual meeting to the IMC?
Kevin?
If so, yes?
On page 15 of the annual meeting, it does say that set in time and date as district office from last year,
Yeah.
from September
We're done.
24.
All right, so it's gonna be here in 2024.
Yes.
And I think it's incumbent on the electors, the voters, which includes anyone from the board, of course, who will be at the annual meeting, to prospectively propose a change in the location for next year,
Right,
at this year's annual meeting.
right, that's.
Okay,
Shayna, what does it say for the time of the annual meeting? Because on here it says 6 PM.
Yep.
But usually it's 7.
This is 7,
Let me go back. here.
Mine says 7.
But on the
but not
meeting
on the,
dates.
not on the calendar.
Oh, on the calendar?
Yep.
Let
That
me
might
go back
just-
into the
that might just be an
meeting
oversight.
minutes.
Yeah.
Just wanna
Probably
make
just
sure.
got
Oh,
used to
yeah.
That
typing
might just be a
6.
copy and paste,
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
that template.
I don't wanna do that copy and paste.
I ain't copying.
I'm way back into the booklet just
Yeah,
now.
change it, it'll be right there, it
Yeah.
says 6.
Yeah.
I changed it to 7.
According to the, what is in here under section 13, set time and date of the 2020, well, it'll be for the next annual meeting. It looks like 7 o'clock was the date that was
But we could have had an earlier meeting that,
I think we did.
I think we did too.
I think we did do them at 6, didn't we?
Well, but I mean, we might have had a pre-meeting before the annual meeting.
Theoretically, if you wanted to, you
We've
could have
had
a
that
regular
before.
board meeting, and an
Yeah.
annual meeting, bang them both out one
To
night.
get a short.
We did that one year.
Yeah,
We
we
did
did.
the regular
We've done
meeting
that.
and the annual meeting the same year,
To get something.
the same
We had
night,
to have something
Sounds like a
approved.
gas.
so.
I would be against that.
You're for 10:01.
All right,
Come on, Calandra.
so it's 7 o'clock
We're gonna do
here,
7, I think that's
Yep.
what this
Yep.
says.
It is 7?
Yep.
It is 7.
and we already approved the,
Yes.
the item.
Okay.
We had a discussion after the item, after the vote, rather. Okay, item number 11K, discussion and possible decision approval of the 2024-2025 proposed school district.
Yeah, we'll turn it over to Rod. Rod's our new business manager. He's been officially on the job for about 7 days. So he's been digging into the budget.
Last Monday.
Yeah, I just want to say that this is a very preliminary budget. Obviously, we're still kind of plugging through. He is getting into it. So these numbers will change as we start getting closer to the annual meeting. And then the final budget approval that the board has in October. But I'll turn it over to you, sir.
So yeah, some of the bigger assumptions we used the state issued July 1st state aid. I would hope we're gonna actually receive more when the final numbers come through. But using that number, we would have a Fund 10 levy of 7.33 million. Yeah, is everybody, okay, everybody's on. So on the second page, it's got a total levy, which is that next bullet point, 10.198 million. And so these numbers reflect adding referendum debt for a past building approval, the latest schedule Baird gave us this afternoon. So if that does not pass, then there'll be radically different numbers for the referendum debt service amount. Going back to the first page, please. 325 is the inflation rate per member. The district is still declining enrollment. I do not have firm numbers, but the graduated senior class, we don't have any private school anymore, graduated senior class, much bigger than incoming pre-K or pre-K moving to kindergarten. So one thing I will mention is the state gives us a declining enrollment exemption, so we would have the same aid based on the prior count if we're declining for 1 year, and then you lose those kids the following year. And then the ESSER funds were all exhausted prior to this fiscal year, 24-25. If you want to go to the mill rate, third page for me. This is just a historical where we've been at. That $6.09 would be reflecting the new debt schedule and a 4% equalized valuation of the property increase. We're thinking it's going to be more, but I went conservative on that.
And I just want to point out that the mill rate impact from what we originally thought has gone down because we're looking at a different financing plan that would allow to have 2 different bond sales instead of just one, which would reduce the interest rate on the first bond sale. So we were talking like a 24-cent tax impact, now we're down to about 17 cents for a mill rate impact.
And this based on interest rates as of right now, not when we would actually issue the bonds.
Right, which are typically conservative now.
Of course.
Compared to what are actual
Compared
when we
to the
get
Fed,
there.
Yeah,
And I don't see interest rates going the other way.
Right.
they're going down next month. Yeah.
If you want to scroll to the next page.
Yeah.
It's very
So-
good for us.
Okay, and then this is just the Fund 10. Now, Fund 10 is the main general fund of the district. It basically catches all activity that isn't in another fund, is one definition also. So you can, if you have any questions, yell, otherwise I'll scroll to some of the smaller funds. The next one is Fund 21. Keep going. That's gonna be, Fund 21 is your donations, your scholarships, and your student activity account activity runs through there. Fund 27, the next page is special ed, runs through there. And then going to the next page. And keep going. And so debt service reflects the non-referendum and the referendum debt. The biggest part of the non-referendum is the energy efficiency exemption that we have. I'm scrolling through.
And for people who might not be in the room, who might be watching online, your reference to referendum tonight has nothing to do with a proposed the referendum that we will be asking the voters to approve in this November.
The referendum.
This is past referendum debt.
On the sheet.
Oh, yeah, on
Yes,
the
yeah.
sheet.
Sorry, that's all I'm saying.
Okay,
Yep.
the past activity.
Yep.
But the 24-25 budget does include an increased
Yep.
levy for that upcoming referendum.
And that will only happen if in fact the voters approve it.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yep, yep. Fund 46 is capital projects fund. The key for that is if you transfer money from Fund 10 into Fund 46, you'll get state aid on that amount right away, regardless of when you spend it. But when you do spend it out of Fund 46, then you don't get any state aid from it. And since we don't really have any projects, you know, like last year, the activity was just the stage floor, but the rest was cafeteria building. So we don't have, you won't see much activity. I just have a $5,000 our transfer, just to show there's activity. Fund 50 is food service, and most of the expenditures are going to be, you know, payments to Chartwell's, our vendor for food service. And community service, Fund 80 is a majority of that activity is going to be the pool. And we can levy separately for community service fund over and above what the revenue limit dictates.
Is there a limit to that?
No, not technically. You're obviously taxing over and above, so it adds to the mill rate, but yeah.
And you have to have.
You gotta have
it's
a legitimate community
project, yeah.
service
Yep,
reason.
Yep. You can't start rolling in teacher salaries into funding.
No, I know.
But included in that would be the extra costs of the police officer and
Yep,
all those
yep,
Yes.
expenses that
Yep,
we've
that's
already
those.
agreed to and had
Any
multiple
community
discussions
service we
about.
provide.
Yep.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, we built in some resource officers, but who
Yep.
knows if
We're not gonna have
keeps
them.
hiring.
Yep.
They hire them.
So, I guess, if there's any questions, feel free to ask now or ask at any point in time, you know? But
Otherwise, we're recommending
I'm constantly
approval.
working on the budget, finding new things every hour, you know, or whatever. So hopefully it'll be more refined for the annual meeting.
And we'll have, of course, an idea of enrollment in about 4 weeks.
But as I
Yep.
stated,
Yep.
with the declining enrollment, it isn't really gonna move the needle on our
Yep.
revenue. It'll help us in future years, but
Yep.
24, 25.
All right. We need a motion to
I'll make a
approve
motion.
the proposed school district budget for the new school year.
I'll move to approve.
Motion by Gorman, second by Kelly Zebro.
Thank you.
You need a roll call. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you for the report. Thanks for all of your diving in fast. Make sure he gets a new pair of sandals for all the hot coals he's been walking over.
We'll do that. We'll do that.
Item 11L, discussion and possible decision, approval of the athletic handbook.
Yep, Trevor, you just wanna kinda update a little bit what's in there?
Yeah, so a lot of times when we have issues with athletes, there could be a situation where a kid does something that's not really major, but they get the same punishment as somebody who maybe has been drinking. Because the only thing we have in there is 25% of the season. So what I was looking at is making those major violations, which is like fighting, drinking, drugs, stuff like that, and then adding minor violations. So if a kid is in the classroom being disrespectful to a teacher, and doing stuff like that, I have the ability to give them a minor violation and maybe possibly suspend them for one game. Maybe, you know, it just gives me more leeway in how we can try to correct the kids' issues without laying the hammer down if it was something like, you know, minor. So basically, so minor violation is any behavior which disrupts either the education, athletic or activities, environment, or which advocates a violation of any school or team policy, which would be unacceptable. This would include, but not limited to, disrespect to staff or other students, use of inappropriate language, damage to school property or other student, staff, or staff possessions, discrimination, social media, dress code violations, other behaviors which would be considered unbecoming. So if there's a kid that consistently violates the dress code, I can say, hey, that's enough, you've already been warned, you're gonna miss a game.
So Trevor, is this just part of the handbook that is-
Yes.
you're making, okay.
So the red
So
part-
this is actually also all extracurricular, not
Yes.
just sport,
Yes.
okay.
Right.
So this is basically just an addition, we just added the minor violations.
Do we also, and I know that most of these should be legal, update any of this for the coaching staff?
The coaching handbook?
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
okay.
So I always think about people trying to get around things based on language that, at least to me, seems incomplete.
Mhm.
And I'm not exactly sure if maybe this language was already in here and is it just the red that is the proposed change?
It's an addition, yes.
So could I reference item 2 though, right under the red? Diane and I and Kelly, we've been on this school board in years where parents have come to defend their children, right? So maybe I'm misreading it, right? I'm not necessarily, maybe I'm not reading this all correctly. Buying, selling, using, or possessing illegal drugs, right? That makes sense. Including performance-enhancing drugs and prescription drugs that are not prescribed to you under paraphernalia. And maybe it's somewhere else where it says that, well, what if they have drugs that are prescribed to them? We wouldn't allow them to sell or give them to other students, would we? Maybe I'm misreading, or maybe I
think where that would come into.
I mean, I know what this is about.
Right. I think some of what you're talking about it could come in under, I mean, because it's technically not possession of an illegal drug. 'Cause
Of
it's
course,
yours.
I get it.
Where you could get into that is the minors, because that kind of falls under the conduct on becoming an athlete. Where you could say like, that's conduct on becoming, you violated a school rule based on, you know, selling of drugs, et cetera, et cetera. You could also consider that to be selling.
What if they didn't sell, they just gave them? It says using, right?
I mean, you could add language that says buying, selling, or.
Distributing.
I'm not saying we should, I can imagine a parent
Right,
who
right.
maybe someone says, well, you're in trouble and we're writing, you know, now they're ineligible for a scholarship, that's the example that I think about, remember that story? And now does the parent or the
Right.
student or an attorney pick apart our language? That's where I was going with that.
Absolutely.
And maybe it doesn't belong here, right? Maybe this isn't the exact paragraph I'm trying to change or edit, as you were kind of describing. Is it already covered under something else? And should we in fact be a little more specific instead of this broad brush? Because broad brush conversations are open for interpretation. If we feel strongly about this, maybe we don't.
Absolutely, and I have another thought that piggybacks off of that, and I'm probably not gonna get this right, but Brad or Tom may know this best, but I know that there's something, because Officer Crosby was talking about at one of the safety meetings, that Delta 4 or Delta something, that is legal to buy, but yet it has done crazy damage to the children and to any individual that goes into the ER with that. So it's legal, but yet I don't even know how it would be classified. but that in itself should be added to just legal,
Is it legal for minors?
For the case of high school students, it's illegal to possess because there is an age requirement. So possession of the Delta 8 THC carts would be considered illicit for a minor to possess.
okay.
I want to say, in the language of our policy, it states all of those under the category of drug affiliated. So when you look at, in our board approved policies already on drugs, it references those and then call them that.
Okay.
And I believe in the handbook it does talk about, violation of board policies and violation here.
Okay,
I wasn't trying to derail your proposal, by the way.
it's just.
I feel that kind of
Open a
happened.
can of worms.
Yeah, I just, Tom, with that, I have, so you got a senior who's 18.
Yeah.
I don't even think 18 is legal. I believe it's
Okay.
21.
Okay, that's fine.
Wow.
Okay, just checking.
And my other caveat to, that kind of pulls us back to the text in red, is there a system of checks and balances so that there's continuity and consistency in the discipline? So just because it's a student that may be qualifying for, or may get a full ride, somebody, the staff may look the other way versus this child who is more troubled and has a history. I just want there to be consistency in the discipline.
Because it is kind of up for interpretation to whoever makes the decision.
Not every situation is the same, but at the same time, there does need to be some form of consistency.
And that's why when it says minor, it doesn't have the same consequences, obviously, but it still is important, right? Well, as proposed, is there a proposal is a motion to?
I'll make the motion to
Okay.
accept.
There's more.
There's more.
There's more.
Yeah.
There's more.
Sorry.
Go.
You can scroll down.
There it is. The other one is academic eligibility. So basically, I was approached by some teachers, some coaches, and some other people that said, I don't understand if our kids have an F, why they're eligible to play sports. So when I was looking at this, what I'm proposing is basically if they have 2 Fs, they're ineligible for 3 weeks. If they have one F, they're on probation, but they can still play. What I'm proposing is if a student has 1 F, that student is, when we do the grading period, that student is automatically ineligible until they get that grade back up, is basically what that's saying. So we do have students that know, oh, I have an F, I'm okay, and that's what we don't want. So, yeah, so basically if they have 1 F, they're ineligible until they get that grade up, and then they can go around and get it signed off by the teachers and return back to me.
Just realize we have at the high school a 6-week grading period too. Not a lot of schools have that. Need to be aware, and if you're gonna go with this, you're really gonna have to do a lot of educating.
Yeah.
Because kids understand, I mean, they know.
Rich, are you advocating on one area or another in this area,
I-
on
I-
this particular item?
I understand where he's coming with both items. Number one, there's sometimes a kid does something that's really not great, and you have to say you're done 30% of your season.
Right,
And that isn't the best thing for our kids.
right.
I understand where you're coming from. Some people will try to find ways to manipulate it, but ultimately, we're here to try to teach kids to not do destructive behaviors. With the grades, I'm all for having high standards. I think it's something every coach, every teacher, listen, if you need help, we'll get you help. But an F is unacceptable.
The word student comes before athlete
That's
for a
right.
reason.
There it is.
My only concern, and we talked about this numerous times, is a student that might not want to take a class and challenge themselves because they are afraid they'd get that bad grade.
And you're gonna get that like in your AP
Right.
courses.
Right. So
They're-
that's the.
They may not do that.
And additionally, how often does it happen where you might have a child from special education that may be an athlete and has that, so they have an IEP? How does that fall into these categories as well?
Good question.
Yeah, I think one, they've always been defined under the same rules for the 2F thing. for the 1F situation, I think there's a couple avenues around it, not around it, but to address that. One, if it's a true concern, the IEP team could discuss that as their actual individual plan and address that as an accommodation, where maybe there's a grace period built into that 6 weeks or something of that nature. But two, that is also why Trevor is proposing not the 3-week limit for that one, so that way, let's say they fail one test right before that 6-week grading period. If they get it up in 2 weeks, they're automatically right back. That we just spend that 2 days to get that 1F back up. So I would hope that would address that concern of one student worried about taking a challenging course, or you know, a learner who might need a little extra time. But in that case, those students also have their IEP team that can talk about that if that's a genuine concern for those individuals.
Well, and I think that window also gives you time to have an IEP meeting, because those take time to get everyone to the table, and then you can also talk proactively as well, like if they're taking that challenging course, are their accommodations gonna be able to support them to be successful in that class, or are there additional accommodations that we need to add to help them be successful? So,
But my thought process is that athletics are the cheapest at-risk program we have. And this way, at least, you're trying to catch kids early where, okay, you're messing up, you got a week now, you can, rather than waiting 3 weeks. Because usually when they fall pretty hard. And sometimes sports are the only thing really keeping them in school.
That keeps them interested.
But keep in mind, this isn't only sports too, this is all extra.
Yeah, I understand.
Right.
Which is another learning curve,
Yeah,
because I
it
don't
is.
think we were watching all of that.
No, we weren't.
We were.
So,
I have a question back to the conduct eligibility. So the minor violations, that used to be lumped in with the major, and now you're just separating it, or you're completely adding more?
Completely adding it, because there's been a
Okay.
lot of situations where a kid did something,
Yeah, and they
but it
should
didn't raise
be
to
held
the,
accountable.
it didn't raise to the major type thing.
Right.
But
They should
still,
still be
I
held
want
accountable for
something to be able to say, hey, well, you really screwed up, we've already talked to you about this, this is what we're gonna do.
Yeah, I've seen plenty of codes that have it, instead of called minor major, and I'm not proposing we change the language, they just call it conduct unbecoming an athlete. And administration has the right to suspend the student for up to a game or 2 games or whatever. If a student is, you know, doing something really inappropriate in school, you have that opportunity to hold that other consequence over their head, as an administrator.
I think it's good expectations.
And I have used that language before. I have suspended kids from athletics for those type of conduct unbecoming an athlete type things.
Okay, we heard the presentation. Is there a motion and a second?
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
Motion by Kelly Zebro, second by Don Kaiser, to approve the updates to the athletic handbook. Any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item M, discussion and possible decision to Neola policy updates. You guys bring up binder there?
This is the policy, so.
Yeah, it's all online, you know.
Yeah, I know. It's a double process.
Yes.
There's 3 processes, there's 3 different things that I'm bringing forward to you tonight. And like I talked a little bit about with a couple different people, I'm trying to feel out how this district handles the process versus others, so I kind of gave you everything. But what I will tell you is that the first one you have is 32.2. That is last summer's update in your transition with superintendents last year. This never got formally approved. It was all edited and gone through. It just was never formally approved. So I'm just bringing that through for approval. I'll tell you right now, I did not dig into what was approved for here. I've gone through this in my previous district, but I have not gone through it here, how it was changed. But you know, typically it's okay. I wouldn't be worried about it. I trust the people that did the edit, that it was good. Then you have 33.2, which is this summer's edit, which I did go through I like to go through it and make the changes myself, just because it forces me to read the policy and learn more about policy. It's kind of like a check and balance for me to stay current on policies. So I usually take the time to do it myself instead of have Neola do all the, they give you the options of what to do. Instead of having them kind of help me with the options, I usually go in and do it myself. Understand that there's some policies from 32.2 that are also in 33.2. So it's kind of, we'll figure it all out once we get it all approved, hopefully. But there's 3 different kinds. There's technical corrections, recommended changes, and legal. Technical are policies that I have the right to change and bring forward to you for approval. Just basically notifying you of the change because it's a change to a legal reference, a grammatical type thing, or Neola went through a period about 3 years ago where they took rid of it used to say the Board of Education, and they went through a phase where they took out of education and just called it the board. So, that was about 2 or 3 years ago. I remember going through that process. And then the final one that's in here is actually, I called miscellaneous. That is miscellaneous because of 3 different items that are involved in it. And that one, unfortunately, some of the changes that we're recommending in that require the lengthier policies, the 8s and the 10s and the 12-page policies. That's 3 things. Number one, when I read through all the policies after I was hired, I read through every one of them over a couple month period. I had noticed a couple really simple grammatical type things. There was a space where there shouldn't have been, or some formatting, so I went through and cleaned all those up. And that would be in here as approval as a technical change. Then the other thing is there was a request by the board to look at some pronoun type things in the policies that they went through. Neola went through, but those were never brought forward to you guys for approval, so those are in here. Coupled that with, there was a decision we made recently administratively to change our compliance officers for all of our harassment, and then the compliance officers are in like 8 different policies, so it's, like 1/3 of a page over like 120 pages of documents that you have in front of you. But we're moving, it was Stephanie Duran and Rob Way were your compliance officers. Now it's going to be Christy Helt and Brian Grill. Both Christy agreed to take the training. Brian was the the compliance officer, in his previous district. And then as the process goes, I would become the decision maker then. So we're recommending approval of all of this large conglomerate of paper. And we can talk about it at a later date, how you want me to do this the next go round, which won't be until like December.
Is there a motion, or would you like to have discussion first? Sounds like discussion first.
Yeah, just
Yep.
2 questions.
Yep.
And we had a little discussion before our meeting
Yep,
with it.
yep.
And we paid for the Neola thing
Yep.
to do this for us. And there are certain state ones we have no say over.
All the legal ones.
Right, all the legal ones. So, well, it behooves us to go through this, which you have to every year.
Yep.
But, as far as really changing policies, or, I guess, putting our own spin on them, I would probably stay away from that and do more or less what we're paying to get done. Correct?
Yeah. I mean, you have, obviously, you own your policies. They're your board policies. You can do whatever you want with them.
Right.
Neola's purpose is to go through and tell you based on court decisions,
Yeah.
state statutes, federal rules, laws, and like I said, court decisions where precedent has been set, or updating language, like as artificial intelligence has come out. They come up with a new policy with that. During COVID, they came up with a at-home learning policy, kind of a virtual learning policy. So as education evolves, they come up with new policies. But then Neola has a concept where their policies are vetted by legal. And then if you take their policy and don't make a ton of changes to it and don't substantially change the intent of the policy, there is a certain amount of legal protection you have that they will help you with legal protection if your policy is challenged. If you go and want to make changes to your policy, which I'm not going to tell you is a bad idea or a good idea, that's your decision to make with what you do with policy. My job is just to kind of prepare it for you and present it. Then the onus on us would be if there's a legal challenge, we would have to defend ourselves. Now, when I tell you there's some legal protection from Neola. You're talking, what the equivalent of today's terms is probably one 20-minute phone call. It's like $500 to $1,000. I mean, it's not like they're gonna defend you all the way to the Supreme Court, but you do have some legal protection.
Jessica, it looked like you were gonna say something earlier. No?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
I will make the motion to approve
The recommended changes.
the
and
recommended
updates.
changes and bring back for the second reading of any new policies.
I will second that.
We have a motion by Gorman and a second by Zebro.
And that's what I was just gonna ask, we have to.
The second
we
reading
have
of any
to-
new one.
So we'll, yes, so.
So the
we'll
pile
have
will
to-
be drastically less
Yes.
if this passes.
Okay, there we go, okay.
So you don't need to get a hand cart next time, a dolly to bring them in.
Big.
Shana, would you please read back the motion?
Yes, I have motion by Gorman, second by Kelly Zebro to accept the first reading of Neola policies for 32.2, 33.3, and miscellaneous to be brought back, and new policies brought back September 24th to the annual board. Boys go over
New
review.
policies that will come back for a
Wait,
second
do you-
reading.
Yes.
Yep.
New policies will.
Yeah, just the new ones.
Okay.
Any other questions?
So, okay, I know you kind of went through.
Mhm.
Was there any, I mean, obviously it was really challenging to read through every single,
You can
Yep.
bring back a policy anytime. If
Okay.
you-
Yeah,
If
Diane,
you,
that's
Alright.
good to read.
Yeah.
yes, so if you
Yeah.
find one
Yes.
that we approve,
Right.
it doesn't mean we can't bring it back next month to readdress
Right.
it.
Did anything in terms of Title IX change?
No, the only thing that, Title IX that was changed in here, Jessica, was the change of the compliance officers.
That's what I.
That was it. And I know what you're asking me. The new Title IX policy, if we were to approve it, is 2266, and the current one is 2264, or vice versa. The new Title IX regs are a completely brand new policy.
But not in here.
Correct. They're not in there, no. No, the Title IX policy you have in there, I don't know if it's 2264 or 2266.
66.
Yeah, the new one is 2264. The current one is 2266, so,
Okay.
no, I didn't slide that in the back door.
Okay,
We have a motion and a second.
No, I tried to, you could spend months
yes, right.
going through it. I started browsing, I said, okay, I'm done.
It's
They're all out on the
Sorry,
website for the
Peyton.
public to view.
Yeah.
Usually, it'll tell you, for me to go through like 33.2, it's about a 6 to 8 hour process.
Oh, yeah.
To go through it and read them and compare them and then edit the changes on the page. It's about a 6 to 8 hour process, depending upon how big they are.
Diane and I were talking about hiring our most recent former board member as a consultant to come and present to us.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, gosh. That's a good one, yeah.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for your laborious work.
Yes.
Item N, discussion and possible decision, approval of the school business manager job description.
Yeah, I'll make my portion of this really relatively short. N, O, P, Q, R are all just approval of job descriptions that, Shana's been going through. I've reviewed, and also the individual pretty much involved with the job has reviewed as well, and kind of make sure that it's been up. We're trying to update job descriptions to reflect current days and give each individual an opportunity to read their own job description, see if anything needs to change. So we're working our way through the process. We have a handful more to go, but all administrative type ones have to come to you guys, so we are bringing forward 5 of them tonight, with more to come.
I'll make the motion, we approve the school business manager job description.
We have a motion by Novinsky.
Can I ask for an amendment? Can we just
Yep.
approve all
I
at
was gonna
once?
say, can we
We-
group them all
is
together?
that what you're
Are you okay with
Yeah.
the amendment? Okay, then
Only to R, obviously, approval.
Yes.
of Technology administrator
And
job
Yes.
description.
because then I will
Yep.
second.
Okay, that's, right.
So the motion is to approve these 5 administrative job descriptions. Motion by Novinsky, second by Gorman. I just have a quick question.
Yep.
Forgive me, I probably am asking a question that's redundant. Under O, which is the principal,
Yep.
I know the job description that's in here is just the principal. Is there any change to the assistant principal position?
We did that last
That was
month.
We did,
last
okay,
year.
I forgot.
Yep, yep. And then, what do we have left, Sheena? We were working
I have
on,
Director of Curriculum, which I completed today.
we have
I have.
Brian's.
Brian has two that
Okay.
he's reviewing for
So this will be next
OT.
month.
Yep,
Yep.
Yep,
yep.
so I have a couple that I'm still working on.
Thank you.
It's a great idea, keep updating.
Yeah, we need to, yeah. we gotta-
Any other questions?
I'm gonna go through mine.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 11S, as in Sam, discussion and possible decision, 66.030 agreement and 66.0301 agreements.
Yeah, this is an agreement that we have with Stevens Point to educate one of their students in our building, middle school student in the Pride. Yep, in the Pride Center. So we've been doing it for a couple years, but we haven't really ever had a formal agreement with them. So Brian and I talked, and Brian recommended, and I agreed. We need to have a formal agreement with them to just kind of make it a little bit more official. So we're recommending approval of the 660301 agreements with Stevens Point to educate a student of theirs.
Brian, you were gonna add something?
I was just gonna add, because it is a student with a disability, it does outline who's in charge of what services, who claims it, transportation. So it lays that out, whereas compared before, it was just a tuition, a money amount. This just lays out who's in charge of what a little more clearly.
Oh, that's great.
Thank you.
Something very, very needed, thank you.
Motion by Kaiser, is there a second?
Second?
Second by Novinsky, any other questions? Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 11T, discussion and possible decision, individual transportation contract.
Yeah, this is just a couple, they're not attached, because there really is no option you have. It's just an annual approval of individual transportation contracts with a couple of families. There's 2 of them total that transport their students typically to Northland Lutheran. It's just an individual transportation contract versus us having to pick them up and then run a bus all the way out there. It's usually more cost effective for us in this case to allow them to transport themselves. So recommending approval of those individual
I'll
transportation
make the
contracts.
motion.
Motion by Novinsky, second by Kelly Zebro. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Calandra, I have them here for you to sign after we're done. Okay? And a number of other documents. Item 11U, discussion. Petition to reduce the number of elected board members. The decision ultimately would be made by district residents present at the annual meeting itself.
Yeah, I was notified that there's a group that might be sending out a petition to reduce the number of board seats from 9 to 7. So I laid out, I contacted School Board Association just to confirm the process. If you're a second or third class city, you have to have 500 signatures, I'm sorry. Mosinee, because of its size, is considered a fourth class city. Classes of city are all determined by population size. Under 10,000 is like a fourth class city. So the petitioners need 100 signatures of district residents. It needs to be in the district office like 30 days prior to the annual meeting, which that would be a Sunday. So it needs to be in the district office by Friday, close of business on Friday. And with that, it needs to outline how the reduction would occur. A couple things on that. Number one, the reduction has to happen over 2 years. You cannot reduce 2 seats in 1 year. So it would be you would spend a year as an 8-member, if it passed, you would spend a year as an 8-member board, and then you would go to 7 members the following year. So the petition needs to have 2 factors in it. It needs to have the 100 signatures, a minimum of 100 signatures, and it has to have the plan for how the reduction would occur. So one of the things I copied on the agenda for you is the kind of the board member layout, the apportionment, however you want to phrase it, on here. And then what would happen is then it goes to the vote of the electorate at the annual meeting. So it's not like this board makes the decision. The members, the district taxpayers, residents at the annual meeting will make the decision. So your vote would count just as much as anybody out in the crowd that is a resident of the Mosinee School District would count. So it's not a decision that you guys have You have a vote on the decision, but your vote doesn't count, or it's not solely your decision.
Yeah, it's not solely a board,
Correct.
decision, it's with the community.
And was it my understanding that it wasn't necessarily to 7?
It can go to whatever number you want it to go to. Yep. Yeah, it could go to 9 to 5, you could go to 9 to 11, you could go 9 to whatever. I will say, in my experience, not that every district is different, every district has the right to do it how they want to do it. If you look at it across the state, I would probably say 5 is you know, if you look at it kind of in a concept like, you know, I like round numbers, as I've told you, like 25% are at 5, 25% are at 9, and 50% are at 7. That doesn't mean you have to join the mass. I'm just, you know, kind of, somebody asked me to present where the average is of schools our size. I was not able to get that information from the School Board Association, but I will just tell you in my experience, that's kind of what I've seen. But every district's different. Some districts, big districts have 5, some little districts have 9, and everywhere in between.
So, when I knew this was something that was discussed, or we were gonna be discussing, I did a little bit of research. It was interesting, on August 16th, just the other day, in the Education Week publication that we all receive emails about regularly, there are 82,000 school board members nationwide in 13,000 school districts. Which the simple math on that says that the average is 6.3, so it would maybe be closely aligned with your example. That isn't Wisconsin alone, obviously, that's the national average. The biggest issue that school boards, that school districts cite for reducing the quantity of board members is the inability to find candidates. I parenthetically would add that thankfully we have Donna here, who ran for your municipal geographic area, but there were many weeks that went by where there was a question as to whether or not anyone was going to step forward from your particular municipality. I know I was on the school board when we went to the blended representation with, this was in the 1990s, when we went to having some at-large and some geographic, because they used to all be at-large. 100% of our seats, we used to be at-large. And at the time, 8 of the board members were from the city. And so it was the discussion and the rationale to change it, to put some representation, but with technological advancements and a lot more close proximity for people in the communities, I think I am completely in agreement with what Dan, you weren't talking about this earlier, were you, Paul?
No.
What Dan was mentioning earlier in public forum. I would like to see all of the seats be at large, because I think we've had a change, but I'm just telling you how I would feel about that.
Does that have to be in the petition?
Yeah.
So if they're gonna change instead of going geographically, okay.
And if we're gonna reduce, as a district, we have to, someone has to figure out, I mean, I know there is voter data available for the number of citizens in each of the municipalities, and so if 2 seats were removed, whether one of those was a municipal and one was an at-large or whatever, or if they were all becoming a different thing, we'd have to decide, which ones.
Well, the way Greg explained it, the first year we can only reduce by 1.
Correct.
So
Correct.
that gives you,
And I'm not running again,
okay,
right? I'm a term limits guy.
okay.
The last time I was on the school board in the 90s and early 2000s, I served my 2 terms, and I stepped down, and I got back on the school board in a competitive election later, rather than as an incumbent, and I ran and I was elected, and then I served my terms, and then I got off the board. And so my biggest rationale for getting off, my biggest reason for getting off the school board next April is A, to give someone else a chance because I'm a term limits advocate. I've always been that since the 80s, before I was ever on the school board. So, but you're right, I mean, so therefore, I bring that up because I know the town of Mosinee, if you have your document in front of you, I'm representing the town of Mosinee,
Right.
which means that that municipality, if it didn't become at-large, or all at-large, would have to be absorbed into some other geographic area.
Yeah, basically the way I understand it is the petitioners are gonna basically rewrite policy 142.3.
Yeah.
That's basically what they're going to
They
do.
have until Friday to do this.
Yep. Yep.
A couple of other points is I want to just make a couple comments. Anytime I think about organizations and leadership in any organization, 100 years after the entity has been around, or more in this case, I think we ought to begin thinking about it by asking the question, if we were forming the school district for the very first time, the school district's Board of Education for the very first time, would we necessarily recommend a 9-member board? I mean, I have no idea why we have a 9-member board. I don't know where it came
That was
from.
one of my questions, why this district would.
I don't know.
choose- Yeah. And
Right?
it's- I'm assuming it's always been that way. No, I really am, it's like, yeah.
I don't
I've done
know.
a little research as well.
Because there's gotta be, yeah.
Wausau, Stevens Point, larger populations, are both at 9. However, then I also looked at Merrill and Rhinelander, more comparable city population, and they're also at 9. So we must be part of that 25%, perhaps
Yep,
that's
yep.
more the northern portion of the state.
Yeah.
Stratford has 5.
And when I use that round number, Jessica, that was no factual, I'm just a round numbers guy.
Yep, yep.
Well, the average nationally is 6.
In the area-ish,
Yep.
seems to be this 9. I disagree, Kevin, in the fact that I don't think that going all at large is right, because I am a firm believer in making sure that all areas of the school district have representation. So whether people realize it or not, every single person within the school district pays a portion of their property tax, comes to the school district, whether they have children or not, whether they're more mature or just turning 18. Everybody pays, if they have property, they pay their property taxes, which in turn a portion comes to the school district. So I really want to make sure that everybody has representation versus just perhaps the city individuals, that it's more convenient for them to get to the meetings. But I'm a firm believer in making sure that there's that representation.
I would be
Whether-
interested in, I'm sorry.
Whether we decide to lump other areas together or look at those types of boundaries, maybe that's what we need for some of the areas that are harder to fill.
I would be interested in seeing what the community thinks. And getting their, ultimately,
Well,
it's
that's
their.
what we would know at the annual meeting,
You're gonna find
right?
out at the meeting what they want, that's right, that's when you.
What do you?
Well, they may want change, but they may not want what the petition says.
Right, and then you've got the 27 people or so who come to the annual
Yeah.
mean.
And that may not represent.
23
May
of
not
them work for
represent
the school
what
district
really people are
or are on the board, right?
And theoretically, we're at the mercy of the petitioner. Really, we don't have the right to deny the petition.
Right.
We don't have the right to say, no, we'd rather have a non-binding referendum to get, or a survey. If the petition comes, we have to respond.
My thoughts are, just, again, to wrap 2 other points, is that our responsibility is to be stewards, right? To be responsive to the multitude of stakeholders we have, students, parents, teachers, professional staff, other staff, business owners, employees of employees of businesses who happen to live here whether they are businesses they work for in Mosinee School District or external, as well as, I think Jessica maybe mentioned, residents even without children, right? We have given the public opportunities to, the public has had opportunities at least every 5 years to be involved in actual work of the school district at strategic planning time. I was doing some reading and I was thinking, oh, there are some schools that give citizens the opportunity to decide how to spend certain grant funding. Thought that was kind of interesting. In the past, public members, non-school board members, even served on committees and had a vote, right? So 2 years ago, I think 3 years ago, we formalized the change of that policy. It doesn't mean the board couldn't change it back to the way it used to be. So, yeah, I mean, it was just interesting looking at some of the rationale that how other boards operate, and as I was formulating my own thoughts on this topic, right? So we'll know Friday.
I do
Anybody else?
have one question, Kevin, and you may know the answer. Where we've discussed people running and nobody running in a certain, you know, district or whatever, what happens if nobody runs?
The board, after, or I'm sorry, at or following the reorganizational meeting, would appoint.
Could appoint.
Well, I
Now,
think
did
you
we-
have to,
Could.
you have to take applications
I was
first.
gonna say,
There's a
did we put
policy
that
in
in
place.
policy? There's a policy for where they
Yeah, yeah.
have to
In the
interview,
policy.
correct, and then we choose.
Is that true?
Okay.
But you think
That
if
must be a
somebody,
new policy.
And they could, they would
New in
still
the
have
last
to be
20,
from that
30 years.
district or?
Yeah,
No, they
typically,
wouldn't
yeah.
have to be, I'm assuming they
No,
could be.
no, if you're in a portion district and nobody runs and you're like Kevin said, he's from the town of Mosinee, if nobody runs from the town of Mosinee, the board can have the right to appoint somebody after the fact, after the election. You would take applications, it could be as simple, you would publicize it typically in the paper, social media, where nowadays, social media. But they would have to be able to meet the requirements of his seat, so they would have to come from the town of Mosinee. You cannot change that to all of a sudden an at-large seat, that has to be a town of Mosinee seat. So then you would have people apply, you would interview or select without interviews, it's up to, I would, without reading the policy and remembering it verbatim. Typically what you would do is you would interview the candidates, the board would make the selection of who they would wish to apportion.
I'm a little disappointed you didn't know that policy.
That
I'm gonna have to take my vote.
After having read them all, right?
That did happen here a couple of times.
Yeah,
Because
I
that's
first got
how,
on the board in 1993 that way.
and Mike did too.
Getting
The second
appointed.
time around,
Yeah.
it was somebody that left and they looked for.
But that was when it was at large, when I
Yeah.
first got on.
Right now, the way right now, you have to follow policy 142.3. Which lays out exactly, so if whoever represents in group 2, towns of Emmett, Bergen, and Green Valley, if that person doesn't run for re-election or decides to resign or moves out of that respective municipality, you would have to appoint somebody from that apportioned district of those 3 townships.
What do you think the biggest benefit to having a smaller size board would be?
Can I answer that?
Yeah.
You have less talking and go home earlier. I'm just joking. You get less opinions.
You know, I will tell you that where I came from, before I got there, I was a part of the transition from 9 to 7. The reason they went that route is they were having a harder time filling seats in certain areas, so then you combined areas to create a larger geographic area.
Yeah.
You know, that's the reason they did it, not saying that's the right reason, the wrong reason. I'm just telling you that's why some districts are transitioning to smaller boards, is they're having a harder time filling seats. I haven't been here long enough to know if we have a hard time filling seats or not. I'm just,
So one thing, I mean, we all live all of us live in Marathon County. Maybe not everybody in the room, but Marathon County has one of the largest county boards in the
Yes.
entire country,
Yes.
right? It's like 39 people or something like that. Oh, yeah.
Larger than the state senate.
It's so ridiculous, right? But none of those people, they aren't willing to acknowledge that maybe everyone who's on the county board shouldn't be there. And I don't think that that's what we're facing here. I think what we're facing here is, you know, maybe the work can be done. I think as we look at how education has changed, I mean, to answer your question, I would say I could see a smaller board being more beneficial in the sense that it would have us do less micromanaging as a board. It would put some responsibility on the board to relinquish some of the reins of the of that interaction to our administrators and have them, you know.
On the people. That's what I was just gonna say.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
Well, okay. I'm just
My
saying
only
that my
question
opinion.
if it comes, because I want everybody who's watching or whatever to realize if you reduce, then who has the power to say we're combining this area with this
The
area?
petitioner comes forward with the signatures and the plan for reduction or addition. I mean, they could come forward and say, I want 11, and they could say, or they could say, I want to stay at 9 and I want them all to be at large. They could say, I want 7, all at large. They could say, I want 7 and I want 3 from the city of Mosinee and 4 from the town of Mosinee, and nobody else gets represented. I'm not condoning that, I'm just saying that's a hypothetical.
Good, I had no
Yeah,
idea
yeah,
who was
no,
gonna
the
be-
petitioner
Okay,
needs to
gotcha.
present the proposal.
And the proposal has to include what it looks like going from 9 to 8?
Yes.
In the first year, and from 8 to a different number, and whatever,
Yes.
okay.
I think it's about 85% of the things you worry about never happen. So I think maybe we can move on.
I just
Good
want
luck on Friday.
Yeah, I just want to make you aware, make everybody aware that this could be coming forward, so if you want your voice heard on this, pay attention to the annual meeting agenda.
Yeah.
And if it's on there and it's something you want to have a say in,
get people to the annual meeting.
Attend the annual meeting after I'm done speaking, just come for that part, so my part's a lot quicker, and we can move on.
Okay.
Come about 7:25.
There we go. Well, I don't know, some of our meeting's been over by then.
All right, never mind.
Okay, anything else on you? Excellent, thank you. Good report.
Oh, my report.
Yep, now we're on 12.
Sorry, my report. Admin retreat we had lately. I want to give kudos to the Mosinee Brewing Company for allowing us to use their back room for our admin retreat. We had a couple days in early Monday, Tuesday last week, I believe it was, actually. I just want to thank them for allowing us. It was nice to get off school property, to have that, just less distractions, very beneficial. We finalized the in-service schedule, kind of talked about the year, calibrated for educator effectiveness on Tuesday morning, and then part of before lunch, after lunch, on Monday, we discussed the future of education, kind of where we saw it going, and then developed a district improvement plan. New teacher academy we had last week. It was great to get the new staff together in one room. A lot of information we threw at them, took them on a little district tour. Our bus driver got us lost looking for the school forest, but we won't blame him, right, Diane?
No, of course you won't.
Teacher in service.
New guy.
Yeah, the new guy. Yeah. It wasn't Diane, let's put it that way. It was the new guy. Teacher in service. Coming up, administration's done a great job, and everybody else getting ready for that. That's next week. Don't forget, Monday morning, we'll be there. You'll be hopefully uncaptivated by my very short welcome back address. And then the district improvement plan. One of the things we've talked about at our retreat, kind of talked about as we've gone, to develop a district improvement plan. Each of our schools develops a school improvement plan. We thought it was important to kind of have an overarching district one. And kind of what we've talked about that we're looking to do is kind of redefining READY. We're going to redefine the report card. You can you still have the one that state gives, but kind of redefining our report card to showcase a little bit differently what happens, to kind of talk about how we're because one of the things with the state report card is it doesn't do any justice to our youth apprenticeships and our dual credit programs, which we're very good at. So we want to try to try to redefine exactly what how we are, and we're not gonna just create it just to make us look good, but we're gonna kind of define it based off of the 3 pillars or the foundational pillars of leadership, culture, and academics, in order to create a more concrete story of our district performance. So that's kind of our task for the year, and we'll bring you more information next month, exactly what that means, because we just kind of laid it out, and that's gonna be our task over the next couple admin meetings to define that.
Okay. 12B, Mr. Way.
Yes, so just a couple things to update the board on, just to highlight from my report. Number one, the Ford exam is being redesigned. As you know, with the emphasis with reading instruction, there's actually going to be a state reading test that wasn't part of the Ford exam, so that's exciting new news. They're looking at also changing the verbiage of the cutoffs for different categories, and so that'll tie in with our school report cards in the future. And then Greg mentioned the new teacher academy, and the district in-service. I'll just highlight, we'll have a wonderful rendition of the national anthem by our own maestro Tyler Schuster, and performed by Mosinee High School students. So if you're there handing out t-shirts, please step in and be wowed by our wonderful music program. And then moving on, we did talk quite a bit about our math pilot program and Act 20 reading plan in our committee level. But just to highlight, just a wonderful, today was our first day of in-service on Act 20 with our teachers. We had 60 teachers, 7 administrators going through the training. Administration last week went through 2 days of training as well. So that's what I have. Any questions from anything I had in my report, or otherwise I'll hand it over to, or back to Kevin, and then Mr.
Yes,
Urban, and then over
Mr.
to
Kaiser.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, just quick updates, getting things ready for school. The playground at the middle school is installed. We basically more than doubled, I'd say, the wood chip area for the kids to play in. And remember, that money was funded from the cafeteria project that we came under budget with. So half that money was used to put that playground in. So I think the kids will love that. I'm sure it'll get a lot of use. One thing we've been working on in the building as well is really going through all of our flooring. And if you get a chance to walk down our halls, just take a look. We use a new product on the floors. It's called 3M Stone Guard. We've used some of that in the past, but basically have a different burnisher to make that floor pop, so it looks like it should look. And actually it's an anti-slip agent, so it may look shiny, but if it gets wet, it actually gets tacky. So hopefully we have less falls, and that's the goal of that. One of our projects this summer was to do a lot of our parking lots. So it's a picture of the elementary school. So everything was striped and ground and sealed. And then part of the, as well at the Kresge Center and throughout the buildings, we did a lot of touch-up painting. So if you get a chance to walk, I think you'll notice everything looks sharp. I don't think the buildings ever looked as good in my time being here. I'm pretty proud of that. Our summer school kids do a great job. Had them painting, we had other people painting, so I would just say money well spent. And the public walks through, I think they'll be proud of what they got. So, and then for me, the 10-year construction plan, the only thing that changed on that for me would really be, we finished the middle school flooring project this year. So on that list originally, it had some asbestos flooring abatement, and we basically knocked that out. So that line item is now off your 10-year construction needs, and it basically cleans that schedule up to where we sit currently. If you want to add something, let me know, but that's where she sits.
A couple of years ago, we changed the way you have those to make it by the building and then the overall district.
Correct,
So-
yep. And there was some estimated price in there, of course, so that's how that was put together. But I think the big thing really is just getting the right things in the right digits, so that you know the projects that are aligned if you want to move forward. It's a Fund 46 function to take money out of that.
Any questions? All right, thank you. Misty Held?
Thank you. I'll just highlight 2 things. We're adding additional cameras. We did a walkthrough with Steve, Eric, and who else was there? But we are repositioning some of our current cameras and adding a couple to some spots that we thought would be good. And then the other thing, all the staff are working through their annual bloodborne pathogens and harassment and discrimination and privacy trainings. which is the talk of Troy, so I decided to bring it up. They love them.
Seems like it's very popular.
It was.
Hearing the murmuring in the
Yeah.
audience. I have to do that at UW Point too, so it's a nightmare.
Things you have to do all the time. Yeah.
Thank you, Chrissy.
Every year.
Ryan, anything additional?
Nope, just really, as you saw, working on the seclusion and restraint report. As we have new students transferring into our district, just know we do transfer IEPs to evaluate what their services look like, how that translates to here, so that's a lot of our work right now. But just on my last column there, recognition, thank you to teachers for coming in and parents and teachers for coming in to have pre-school meetings to make sure we're ready to start the year. There's already quite a few IEP meetings happening just to make sure we're ready to start the year. So thank you to everyone for their hard work.
Thank you. Mr. McCarty.
Nothing much to elaborate on what I had. I would just, to clarify why I included open house being a topic of conversation in our building, is just last year there was the transition from going to a freshman only night to a more 9-12 open house, and we just felt there were improvements we could make to that format. So we've been talking a lot about how to increase our attendance among students, but not only attendance once they're there, but also engagement. Not just putting your notebooks in your locker, but maybe going to see a teacher to talk about a class, and engage parents in that piece of it.
Very good, Mr. Gruby.
Yeah, as you can see, we are hired, and I have to give a shout out to Shayna, because in the transition of the late movement, she was phenomenal on getting me how she wants teachers input into the Skyward, meeting with teachers as soon as we got their contract signed, got them onboarded, got them up in the system, got them running. We were able to get a couple of these folks even then to the new teacher in service, and we've got folks in position to teach now. We do still have a couple assistant spots open, just because we did move some assistants to become teachers. But yeah, there you go, guys. That's the new faces, and some people are in new places. So
apparently you too.
Yeah, me too. New Teacher Academy, which they talked about. A couple of big things that they did discuss were the run, hide, fight implements that Eric did. And district office was able to get in front of our new teachers and kind of talk about processes and procedures for the upcoming year.
I think I heard you got a candy bar for backing.
Yeah, and I almost hit a light. Yeah, I didn't see that light bulb, so you almost lost one there. But he bet me I couldn't back it in between the lines, and I said, oh, I can back this sucker.
I heard that, so I was like, okay.
So yeah, we went and test drove some school buses, and we had a good time. And,
pretty easy, aren't they?
I was shocked at how Jolene, she's
I
pretty
tried
hard
as
on that
well.
brakes.
Yeah.
But it was a lot easier than I thought.
It was.
Yeah.
I was very nervous to try, but I think it was a good experience. If there was ever an emergency, I
Right.
felt much more comfortable, like we could actually do that.
Do that.
Yeah.
And then just the bottom part are the big things that are coming up. So this week, teachers were in their rooms with all the new folks that are in my building, and it was a nice time for my staff to collaborate, talk, get to know each other. And then next week is our in-service, and then we have open house.
Wonderful, thank you. Ms. Schmidt.
A couple things to highlight. A lot of things have already been said about our new teacher in service and the training that has happened. So a lot of great things have been going on these past few weeks with staff. A few things to highlight on the horizon with our safety committee that had met. One of the suggestions from Chief was to look at the traffic flow out of our parking lot. So we are going to move forward with giving this a try. So working on getting messaging out to families on this, but this would be just for morning drop-off, having the flow go just to the right as opposed to left and right out of our front parking lot. So hoping to improve that flow and make it a little bit safer for the in and out, as it's just a large amount of vehicles trying to get in and out of there, and want to do everything we can do to continue to improve that safety piece. So And then the other piece I wanted to highlight was, we started our student lighthouse team. So there's a picture there. You can see students came in during summer just this past week and met with our counselors who are spearheading this. And they started planning activities and different things to just have some voice within making our school a better place. So that was really neat to see leadership even starting at, a very, very young age. So. And our buildings look great, so thank you, custodial staff. They're looking wonderful. So excited to welcome families into our open house in the next week.
Great.
You guys did awesome.
Thank you. Any questions for any of the administrators?
No,
And their
thank you.
reports.
Yeah.
13A, Safety Ad Hoc Committee Report. Ms. Maple.
Okay, I will try to be as brief as possible. And so the 24-25 Safety Committee is chaired by myself, and then the administrators are on the committee as well as a representative from Lamers, the Mosinee Police Department, and Mosinee Fire Department. So some of these I'm going to skip over because the admin in their reports have already referred to some of that, so just bear with me as I go through some of this. But the biggest district level safety recommendation is going to be teaching with the doors closed and locked this school year. So that is going to be a big change from the historical teaching. And in the high school, Mr. McCarty had talked about the update on the digital hall pass, as well as some of the cameras being repositioned to make sure that any blind spots are covered for any potential issues. And in the middle school, I think one of the additions that was not perhaps mentioned is that out in the playground, there was not an exit should there need to be an opportunity for children or staff to get out very quickly. There is now gates put in there so that there are exits to get out of the playground if need be. In terms of facilities, Mr. Kaiser had updated the committee on the addition of the sliding gate, which I had just mentioned as well. In terms of the police department, so in terms of the SROs, of course, they're having difficulty filling the positions, which, like every other industry, in trying to find employees, but they're hoping to have at least one in place in the next 4 to 5 months, and then perhaps we will get that second SRO next school year, or perhaps at the end of this year, depending upon how fast that hiring process goes.
Yeah, understand that it's an onboarding process, so they need to hire the replacement, onboard them into their regular police protocol, and then go through the process of selecting who's gonna become the SRO. So it's not as simple as throwing out a posting and hiring somebody in a couple weeks. There's a process, especially with police, you have to go through psychological evals and a bunch of other stuff.
Okay, in terms of the Lamers update, the Lamers representative just reminded the committee on a few different things to be sure to pass along. That behavior, watching that on the school bus, reminding the children of good behavior, no food or drinks for safety reasons, choking hazards, and that coaches and chaperones should be on the bus at all times for children that are in transport to any sporting events. Additionally, there was a discussion about the Kresge Center entrance security and what's going to happen in the near future as Mr. Doverspike and Mr. Kaiser, Mr. Gruby, and Officer Krause will look to schedule a meeting with the pool patrons to discuss how this will be changed in the future to make sure that that entrance is safe for the children and the staff during the school day. Additionally, Run, Hide, Fight is in the works of being implemented. And then the tabletop exercise, that is going to be, that is worked on being coordinated with the Mosinee Police Department, EMT, fire, police staff, county staff, sheriff's department. So looking to get that on the calendar sometime in the near future. Those are all of the updates from the safety committee. The next meeting will be October 7th, and there will just be 4 meetings this school year. That's all I have. Any questions?
Any questions? Good report, good update, thank you. Item 13B, WASB report, 1 and 2.
Yep. That is me, and we have the fall regional coming up. It is October 1st, Rothschild, Holiday Inn and Suites. Again, you all have this, so let Shayna know if you want to or plan to. They have the meeting, and then they have the workshop and then the dinner. Also, I'd like to bring up that, because it was brought up to me, we have a webinar coming up, October 2nd. It's about public comments at meetings and kind of how to handle that. Kind of had a discussion with possibly changing the way we allow people to speak at meetings. Just putting it out there. And then also, the convention is coming up in January, and that will be the 22nd through the 24th. Shayna, I believe, sent everybody emails. Please let her know who will be attending and who won't. And then one last thing, for the convention, there is, they are taking proposals for being accepted for art. The theme is art contest is growth, and if anybody's interested in having theirs, you visit the WASB website and submit a proposal. So that is all I have. Greg, do you have anything else?
I do not. You covered everything.
Okay, thank you.
There was somebody, I don't remember the name, there was a young lady, a girl, from our school, well, from Mosinee, I don't know if she's in our schools or maybe the private schools, I have no idea. I don't remember her name. She got an award at State Fair for some art. It was in the exposition hall.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I think I read
Middle school, high school?
I don't know, I just saw Mosinee and I thought,
Oh,
oh.
yeah, so I'm just.
And I
throwing
forgot,
it out
I meant
there.
to take a picture of it and then I got
Is
distracted.
that Katie Selber, I think?
I don't
I don't
remember.
know if that was the one. I know she,
I don't
because I did art.
Okay, item 13C, CISA 9, Donna.
All right. I did attend the annual meeting at CISA 9 up in Tomahawk. And I have a brochure for anybody that would like to look at it and see it. There's 22 member districts in this, our CISA 9. Their staff is, well, we have 4 now, I believe, Mosinee people that are on staff at CISA 9. It just, you go up there and Al Betry is so accommodating and I mean, just makes you feel welcome. They did some, now there's where we could have our board meetings. Their new meeting room is amazing. They just finished it. And it's like TVs all around so they can project, and when they have their conferences there and things like that, I mean, it's state of the art. It's awesome. And the chairs are nice too. Yeah.
Most important thing.
They have good chairs.
Yeah, but no, it really is, the staff and everybody, when you're going up there, they have just are very welcoming and very accommodating. So if you ever need anything, you know, there's a place to go, and their programs are, I don't think it's coming to Mosinee. They do a common PD day.
Yep.
And is it going to be in
No.
Mosinee this year? No.
We're going to Merrill, Rob?
Yeah,
Or is it-
there's,
Yes,
I believe so.
It's scheduled
Right.
November 1st in Merrill.
Right.
And there's, the 22 districts are divided into 3 different common areas, so I believe there's one at Lakeland Union, Merrill, and the third one might be.
Marathon,
Edgar?
they had
Marathon?
Marathon. They had, that was last year, they had it Marathon. And so, anyway, but yeah. So I have some brochures here, anyone can look, there's a lot of information in there, and there you go.
Thank you,
It was a good meeting.
thank you. Item 14, future agenda items.
Yes, a handful of things that we're getting ready for next month. School improvement goals, like I talked about, district improvement plan, as I call it, the sip and dip. And then the elementary school staff is on for presentations. We'll have some more information ready for you for the annual meeting and some possible audit stuff.
Meant to bring this up during the discussion about policies. But if you think back to our reorg meeting, and just in general about virtual, right? I mean, we should, you know, if we can change policies whenever we want, and we know we can. You know, we should have, I forgot to bring it up an hour ago, but, you know, we should maybe, as board members, because there was a discussion in April,
was.
Right.
right?
There
Yep.
was.
So maybe drill down deep on that, roll up our sleeves and figure out, is the policy as we all understand it? Should we put maybe some common language explanation as to what the policy might mean, right? Whether it's for reorg meetings only, and/or whether it's for virtual, I mean, we made the change back during COVID,
Right.
you know, for the reasons, but, and then when Jessica was serving overseas, right? So these became rationales. I'm not saying we shouldn't have it, I'm just saying we shouldn't be here next April thinking, oh, you know, we should have talked about it in September or October.
No, and it has come up a couple
Yes,
times, so,
exactly.
and it's confusing, and
Yep.
yes, we need to.
But there's also some very good reasons. I
I'm not
mean,
disagreeing,
yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying that it's come up, and so, but I forgot to bring it up during that conversation.
Yep. I will add that to the agenda and bring it forward, bring the policy forward.
Thank you.
Start with discussion.
Item 15, movement into closed executive session, section 19.85, parent 1E, reads deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing in public funds, or conducting other specified public business, whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Is there a motion to move into closed session?
I'll second.
Motion by Kelly Zebro,